What is up, you guys? It's your girl Kayla, and we are back with yet another video. Y'all already know from the title, we are going to be talking about in vitro fertilization. But before we even get into this video, you already know, if you're new here, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome. I appreciate every single one of you who tune into these videos. Thank you so much. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe on my videos so I know you like this content and so I know what you guys want to see next. So, yeah, without any further ado, let us begin. I get questions from people who are not actually like trying to conceive right now, or people who are just, really curious about the whole process, about whether I'm doing IUI or IVF. Typically, when I tell people that I'm doing IUI, there's this like, huh? Like, there's this confusion, right? And so I'll say IVF, and they're like, oh, okay. Because for them, everything is IVF. There's no difference. It's just, I don't know how to explain it, but like for them, everything is IVF. And I realize a lot of people don't know the difference. So, as y'all already know, IUI stands for intrauterine insemination. There's IUI, there's ICI, there's a third one that you don't really see as often, but basically, it's artificial insemination. Okay, you're getting pregnant by ways of not having sex, but just having sperm introduced to your egg in whichever kind of form. So my route, as y'all already know, is intrauterine insemination done at home. And we use a syringe, like we've already kind of gone through this. If you have questions about that, I will link my IUI video down in the description box below. It includes the instructions that were given to me by my sperm bank and my midwife and everything that I did to conceive. So that is in the description box down below. And I will also remember to put a list of the 4 sperm banks that were recommended to me by my previous reproductive endocrinologist. These sperm banks are all FDA cleared. No, I do not list my specific, or let me rephrase that. I do not identify my specific sperm bank, but I will say that yes, I did choose one of those 4 for my sperm donors. I've actually looked at all 4 for my sperm donors. So I have chosen one from one of those. I will not identify them. I will not identify my specific vial or any of that like I've been asked in the past. But that information, yes, is all available to you. If you have any other questions, always feel free to comment them down in the comment box below, and I'll be more than happy to answer that for you. But back to IVF. I know I get those questions a lot of what is IVF, what's the difference between that and IUI, and also how do you know if you need IVF versus IUI? And I've heard some pretty heartbreaking stories about people who have gone the IUI route, and they've been trying and trying and trying, and they did not succeed. They lost a lot of money, only to find out later on that they really should have done IVF from the jump. So I'm going to explain this, and it's probably going to be in a 2-part video, 2-part series, or maybe even 3, because I do want to also break down insurance and cost of that. And there's a lot of information in here. So basically, if you know nothing about IVF, please stay tuned. Hopefully, we'll be able to answer all these all these questions. So yeah, first off, IVF, if you did not know, this is a procedure where you retrieve somebody's eggs, introduce them to sperm outside of the body, grow them to be an embryo, and then you transfer them back into the person's uterus in hopes that they conceive. And there are multiple reasons why somebody might go through IVF versus IUI. And so to decide on which one's best for you, you really need to get some tests done and talk to your doctor. More specifically, talk to your reproductive endocrinologist. I'm sorry I'm smacking y'all. All of a sudden my mouth got really, really moist. But talk to your reproductive endocrinologist, y'all, and they will run some tests. And so I do have notes here. So I'm just going to be kind of referencing them. Some of the causes that we know of include fallopian tube damage. So as y'all remember, I had my hysterosalpingogram last summer to decide or determine whether or not my fallopian tubes were still good. We found that one was blocked and we were able to unblock it. So had both my tubes been blocked, we would have needed to forego the IUI process and gone straight to IVF. Another issue that may cause you to use IVF is ovulation disorders. So if you have an irregular period, those kind of things, or you don't ovulate, then IVF is probably one of the better options for you, if not the best option. Yes, there are some people who have ovulation disorders, irregular periods, that still opt to do IUI, and it is successful. But if you really don't want to be trying a lot, and if you want to just have not an easier process, because it's not easier, but if you want to increase your chances, you may want to consider skipping IUI and just going to IVF. Now, there are plenty of people who have gotten pregnant from IUI with ovulation disorders. I actually know at least two people, knowingly know at least two people who have, but it took them a lot of time and it was a lot of work, and it worked out for them, but that's what they decided was best for them, and it worked out in the end. So ultimately, when that comes to it, you need to find out if you can do either one, what's best for you. Obviously, you'll want to talk to an RE. Another thing is endometriosis. Hi, like me. If you have endometriosis, and I also believe my sisters with PCOS were saying the same thing, you may want to do in vitro if you have endometriosis. You have the scar tissue that causes the, just so many complications, really. And they can block your fallopian tubes, just like my right one was blocked. So you really want to keep an eye on that and consider that. If you have endometriosis, chances are you may be fine with doing IUI or even getting pregnant naturally, but depending on how aggressive it is, how long it's been, and ultimately how much scar tissue has built up, you may end up foregoing the IUI process and just going straight into in vitro. For me, that was a consideration, as I mentioned with the hysterosalpingogram, and I didn't need it. So that is an option, though. Another thing is uterine fibroids. I know a lot of conversation has been happening over the recent years that I've been aware about fibroids. So you also want to pay attention to that. They could block certain things, block your tubes, just a lot of things that can happen with fibroids where you may not be able to conceive naturally, or with IUI, you may need to have a little more medical I don't want to say interference, but medical assistance to become pregnant through IVF. So that's another cause. Another one, previous tubal sterilization or removal. Basically, these things are things that are affecting your tubes and ovulation. So if you've previously had your tubes tied but you still have your eggs, you want to be pregnant again, they can do IVF. If you still have your uterus, you still have your eggs, they can do IVF as well. So that's an option for you, especially I know some people choose to get their tubes tied and then I don't know, later on down the road, they regret it. They wish they could go back or, whatever reason why they got their tubes tied. And this IVF is a wonderful option for them so they can still be able to have those children that they want. Another one is not having to do with women at all. Hallelujah. It's the sperm count. So maybe there's something wrong with the sperm, or maybe it's just a significantly low amount. IVF can also help with that. So this is kind of why when you are trying to conceive with a male partner, but you're not successful, they're going to want to run tests on you as well as your male partner, because it's not always on our own bodies. Sometimes our man got a low sperm count, or maybe there's something wrong with some of his sperm and that's why things aren't working and you can be more selective. Another one is genetic disorders. Maybe your partner has certain genetic disorders that you want to avoid in your children. Like you guys already know, with my sperm donor search, they had certain genetic disorders that would cause my baby to die just a few hours after they're born, if they're born, so those are things that you want to avoid. And so if you were getting those sperm donors for IVF, then you can be more selective and, get more involved and try to lower the risk of your child developing that. Another one, unexplained infertility. Basically a blanket covering of, okay, so we've gone through this whole list and we don't know why you're not conceiving. Everything may seem all right, but for some reason you're just not able to conceive naturally. And then you want to do IVF and it'll work. And then also, last but not least, you may do IVF for fertility preservation. So say you are dealing with cancer, or maybe you're getting up there in age. We all hate to hear it, but we grow up hearing about our biological clocks and them ticking, and we may have a lot of other things that we want to do before we get pregnant, or we may just really insist on waiting for that partner and they're taking their sweet time finding us. And so whatever your reason, you may choose to freeze your eggs for a later date. So IVF is perfect for that as well. And it's also cheaper when you think about it, just freezing them for a later date versus going through a full round of IVF later on. You may even have much better egg production at a younger age. Just things to think about. So I will say there are risks to IVF. We already know, but in case you don't know, because this is really geared towards people who just know nothing about IVF or it's just very, very limited, some of the risks are multiple births. And we all remember the story of Octomom and how she had so many kids, and I know they shamed the doctor that transferred that many embryos, and we've heard of other people who have had a large number of babies from one pregnancy from in vitro. And it's always shocking, but that's kind of what happens. And so you want to be prepared for that. It does increase your chances of having multiples. And as long as you're okay with that, which I feel like a lot of us would be, then you're fine. You just would prepare. You know exactly how many embryos are transferred each time you have a transfer. And so you know that there's that chance that maybe all of them will take, or multiple will take. So now there are more, limitations in place so that you don't transfer so many, so you don't have like triplets and above when you do IVF. But there are some people who have just not been successful for so many times and for who knows how many reasons, and so they want to increase the amount of embryos they transfer in prayers that, you know, at least one will stick, and then sometimes they're blessed and they have multiple that stick. So there's, those things, and so you also want to consider that. Another one is premature delivery or low birth weight. It's not a significant increase, but it is a slight increased chance of that happening. Don't know the rhyme or reason, but we just know that it has a correlation with IVF. So that's something to consider. But from what I've seen from women who have IVF and from what I've researched, it's not really a significant increase. And ultimately, it's up to you whether you want to take that slight chance or not. And it's definitely something that you're going to want to discuss with your reproductive endocrinologist when you start to discuss IVF. All of this information is something that you would most definitely want to ask your reproductive endocrinologist when you go to meet with them, and hopefully, and I probably should have said this at the beginning, but hopefully this will help with that conversation so you know the questions to ask. So yeah, another one, ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. Your ovaries will get swollen and sore, and you'll feel like you're full and cramping, and that's because of that. Typically it does not last. In very, very rare cases it may last for a while, and you definitely want to see your doctor, but you may not even notice that you have this because it feels a lot similar to ovulation and implantation cramping. And that cramping, if you are successful, is not going to go away, or may not go away, because then you're going to have that cramping in your uterus from it growing and from you being pregnant. So you may not even notice that you have ovulation hyperstimulation syndrome, or what is this? Yeah, syndrome. So you may not even notice it. Always make sure you speak to your doctor, though. A good doctor is really going to be checking in with you when you do have these follow-up appointments. So this is definitely something that you're going to want to discuss with them and make sure everything is all right. And then the next risk is miscarriage. So I know with my current situation, the question in my head was like, okay, what if I do IVF? Would that lower my chances of having another miscarriage? Unfortunately, y'all, no, it does not. Miscarriage is about 15 to 25% chance for IVF, just like it is for IUI or even just a natural conception. So 1 in 4 women will result in miscarriage. You just want to be aware that it does not lower your risk of miscarriage, and it also does not increase your risk of miscarriage. So that's also something to be aware of. The next is egg retrieval complications. It's a whole long list of possible complications from infection and just being sedated or being on the pain medication that they give you. There's just a list of complications. So you want to discuss that with your RE before you go in to have that procedure, so you are completely aware. I can let you know every bit of complications that I was able to research, but ultimately it's best to ask your RE, who is more familiar with the procedure, has probably done it countless times, and they can tell you with their own personal experience what complications that they see. And also they're going to be more prepared with all your blood work and the things that you do to prayerfully avoid any of those complications. Next ones are ectopic pregnancy. Just like any other kind of pregnancy or conception risk, there is also the risk of an ectopic pregnancy. Birth defects, that's why you want to do IVF, so you can avoid that, but there's still risks. The other is cancer. Everything we do I don't know why, but cancer has to be thrown in there. Um, it increases your risk of getting cancer, and then also stress. And the stress really kind of hit home for me because I was not careful of my stress, and I let stressful people stay in my life. Um, and ultimately, I kind of paid the price for that. So, you want to make sure that your stress levels are low. Also, it can be stressful both physically, financially, and also on your relationships with your loved ones as well as with your partner. So, please make sure that you are having open dialogue with them, and also make sure that you are seeing a therapist. I know most insurances will cover a therapist, and if you don't have insurance or you can't afford to, whatever, I do know that they do have lowered out of pocket rates. So you just kind of want to shop around, find a therapist that meets your needs, that fits your budget, and or accepts your insurance, and just reach out to them. Ooh, excuse me, throat got dry. But reach out to them, see a therapist. It really does make a huge difference, y'all. I promise you. That's not me just saying that as a therapist, but also as a therapist who has a therapist. Um, it is so helpful, especially when you're going through the harder things, or especially when you're a single parent trying to conceive. You're alone for a lot of this. And sometimes you need that extra support. So, seeing a therapist is very, very helpful. I highly recommend it. Whether you feel like you need it or not, you may find that it works great for you. Just give it a few tries, give it 3 to 5 sessions. Your first 3 sessions typically are just intakes, getting to know you. So I really recommend you give it 5 sessions to really get to know your therapist, and your therapist get to know you, to really determine, do I feel like I need this? And if not, no harm, no foul, but I really highly recommend it, especially when it comes to dealing with the stress that it has on yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and on your relationships and on your finances. Having somebody to talk to that is a professional that can help you, it really does make the difference. So the next part I want to talk about is preparation. People want to know, what is it like and what's going to happen. Preparation for this is basically preparation that you would have anytime you're doing IUI or IVF, but for IVF, they do have a couple of extra tests that I didn't have for IUI, so I wanted to share this with you. Naturally, you're going to have I'm trying not to butcher this word. It's a sonogram, but it's also like to see. Let me see. Do I have the word actually written? A hysteroscope. So they're looking inside your uterus with a scope, and they're, checking your tubes and whatnot. They also can do a hysterosalpingogram, the dreaded HSG. My experience was actually absolutely wonderful, but hysterosalpingogram to make sure that your tubes are open, and to make sure there's no cysts and or anything else that may be going on inside that may cause any issues. At this time, they'll also want to look and check your tubes. With the hysteroscope, they actually have a scope, and they're going in and they're looking. You're also going to have a pap smear. You may also have a mock retrieval, just to see if they can do it. So what they'll do is kind of like with the hysteroscope or like a pap smear, they're going to insert that scope through a needle to see if they can get in there to retrieve those eggs. It's a mock. I don't know how many doctors will actually do a mock one, but I do know that it is a possibility. They may do that to just make sure that you can. And yeah, mock embryo transfer, I should say. So that's definitely something that you're going to want to be mentally prepared for. You're going to want to ask your doctor about that as well so you can mentally prepare for it. They're going to want to do the semen analysis. I already mentioned that. Now, if you are using donor sperm, you most likely won't have to do a semen analysis, but it also depends on where you get your semen from. So if it's not an FDA cleared place, then they may still want to do another semen analysis, because not every sperm bank is going to do an analysis like the ones that I have listed in the description box. So you also want to make sure that's taken care of as well. And then let's see, typical blood work. They're going to want to check your progesterone levels, your follicle stimulating hormone, or FSH. Anti-Mullerian hormone, estrogen levels. They're going to want to check all of these to make sure that they're at the levels that they should be. And if not, it's good that they know so they can give you the proper medication so your body can be balanced and be prepared for that. And then last but not least, they're going to give you an STD/STI test, which was such a shock for me when I saw them giving me the tiger top tube when I was getting my blood work done. Y'all know I used to be a phlebotomist in my past life. And so I was so curious. I'm like, why are y'all testing me for STDs? Like, excuse me? But it's just routine, whether you're having IUI, IVF, basically anytime you get a medical professional involved with you trying to conceive, you're going to have to get that done. And I assume, I don't know, they may even test you after you're pregnant just to make sure. I know when I had my blood work from my pregnancy test, they didn't do an STI testing, but they did check to see what my blood type was, which is so dumb because we've known my blood type since I was in high school and it's in my file. But, you know, that's just something else that they tested. So, yeah, this video is getting so long, so I'm definitely going to have to break this up into at least another video where we're going to get deeper into what these procedures look like and finances and all that other wonderful stuff. So if you like this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Comment down below what you think. If you have any questions or any information that you feel like I missed and you would like to add, please add that down below, especially if you've been through IVF yourself, because even though I can do the research, it doesn't compare to somebody who's actually been through it firsthand, and I would love to be able to share that knowledge with anyone else watching these videos. And also, please, y'all, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell, and I will see y'all next week.